A man convicted of opening fire at the Fort Stewart Army base learned his fate today. Sergeant Cornelius Radford was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences early this afternoon. WSAV's Evan Smoke has more on this sentencing.
5 days after being found guilty of 6 specifications of attempted murder, soon-to-be former Sergeant Cornelius Radford found out that he could potentially spend the rest of his life behind bars. Radford was convicted last week of 2 specifications of attempted premeditated murder and 4 specifications of unpremeditated murder. He was given a life sentence with the possibility of parole for each offense. Of note, the judge said the sentences for the unpremeditated offenses were higher than the listed parameters, but he chose to upgrade the sentence due to injuries suffered by those involved and damage to the mission inflicted by the incident. These sentences are set to be served consecutively. Radford will also be dishonorably discharged, forfeit all pay and allowance, and be reduced to the pay grade of an E1. Reporting from Fort Stewart, Evan Smoke, WSAV News 3, on your side.
2 officers and a 3rd person are injured after an officer-involved shooting this morning in the Starland district. Although information is limited, Savannah Mayor Van Johnson addressed questions about what he saw on the scene. WSAV's Jillian Coles joins us live from where the scene was this morning.
Nakaya, officials say it happened in this area right behind me at the intersection of Bull and West 43rd Street around 7 a.m. Now, Mayor Van Johnson says he got to the scene shortly after. He confirmed 1 person who was shot was taken to the hospital and 2 women officers were taken there as well with minor injuries. Now, he says he spoke to them at the hospital and they say they were shaken by the situation. Many questions still remain about what led to this shooting, and Johnson says he's not going to make a judgment call until answers become available. He says residents in the area should feel assurance from officers active work this morning.
Police officers are out patrolling and they're doing their job. If they see something suspicious, they are duty bound to be able to investigate that. So I think the point here and the top line here is that police officers are out doing their job.
The Georgia Bureau of Investigation is now leading this investigation, and we will update you as soon as new information comes our way. Reporting live in Savannah, Jillian Coles, WSAV News 3, on your side.
Thank you, Jillian. The city of Savannah is launching a new education series meant to build trust between law enforcement and the community. It's called Behind the Badge, and the first series will focus on use of force. The community will have the chance to talk and learn from an expert and go through training simulators used by Savannah police officers. City officials hope participants will gain a better understanding of the decision-making process officers face in escalating situations. Registration is required. The session will be held this Friday and Saturday at the Savannah Police Training Center. To some new developments now, we have an update in the court case against Mark Stiegel. We first brought you this story 4 years ago when Stiegel allegedly drove a boat drunk, crashed into another boat, and killed 5 people on the Wilmington River. Today, lawyers met to set a trial date for him. They determined the trial will take over a week to complete. The pretrial is set for October 12th at 9 a.m., but that date could change. A date has not been set for the trial. WSAV is your local election headquarters. South Carolina voters are heading back to the polls today for runoff elections that will help shape some of the state's biggest races this fall. The results could help determine who represents their interest on issues like growth, housing, healthcare, and public safety. Election officials say turnout in runoffs is often about half of what it is during the primary. If you voted in the June primary and plan on voting today, you must vote in the same party's runoff. Polls remain open until 7 o'clock tonight. If you're in line by 7, you still will be able to cast your ballot. To vote in person, you must have a valid form of identification. The most watched contest is the Republican race for governor, where 2 of the state's top elected officials are fighting for a spot on the November ballot, and both have been endorsed by President Trump. One of the 2 candidates is current Lieutenant Governor of South Carolina, Pamela Evette. She describes herself as a conservative businesswoman. She was first elected to office in 2019. Evette says she is focused on keeping more money in South Carolinians' pockets.
Message came from the voters of South Carolina. They want to keep more of their money. They want me to eliminate state income tax. I'm saying on day one, that's what we're going to do, because that's what business people do.
Evett is facing off against Attorney General of South Carolina, Alan Wilson. Wilson has been in office since 2011, and he says his time there has given him experience that Evett lacks to do the job.
I have a record of delivering results for the state of South Carolina. I have demonstrated leadership capabilities ready for the governor's office. My opponent has been in a ceremonial part-time job for the last 8 years. This part-time job doesn't prepare you.
During the June primaries, Evett was the front runner for the position. She received about 29% of the Republican vote versus Wilson, who received around 26%. In South Carolina, elections head to a runoff if no candidate gets over 50%. In our area, there was only one major race on the Democratic ballot, the nomination for the 1st Congressional District. Two candidates with very different paths facing off in a runoff, with the winner earning a spot on the November ballot. WSAV's Andrew Davis is at the site of Nancy LaCour's watch party in Mount Pleasant right now with a preview of the night's events.
Well, Nakaya, Nancy LaCour was a name that no one really had heard of when connected to this race as little as a year ago, maybe even 6 months ago. But by the time the primary was finished, she had 3,000 more votes than the original believed frontrunner, Mac DeFord, and now seems to be in position to potentially take this nomination. Now, the then former vice admiral for the Navy, was actually switched sides. She was relieved of her duty by current Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth in August of last year as she was up for promotion. Then Republicans switched parties, joined the Democratic side, saying the values and actions of the current administration were not hers anymore. She now faces off with DeFord, who's a lawyer, says his experience in the area knows the values and ideals of people here, giving them the upper hand over someone who's moved to the area in just the past few years. Now, both sides say the limited turnout expected today, it's definitely critical to try and reach out to everyone, even if they didn't vote for them the first time.
Probably had the shortest campaign going and still ended up raising the most votes on it for either a Republican or a Democrat. And I think that says a lot about what this district is looking for. I think they're looking for somebody who is not about just political headlines and who's just gonna, roll up her sleeves and get stuff done for the district.
Whether it was we were unable to make contact with that voter or that they just had a preference for another candidate, I think it starts with sitting down with them and saying, look, I want to hear what's on your mind. I want to hear, what is important to you and what you would like to see out of your congressperson.
Now, Admiral LaCour says her work in Washington previously with the administration actually sets her up very well to be in Congress. At the same time, DeFord says his connections to local governments actually affect what he can do for people here, and he knows exactly what they should want. Polls, of course, are open until 7 o'clock. We'll be here all night at LaCour's party to see exactly what happens and when she speaks. In Mount Pleasant, Andrew Davis, WSAE News 3 on your side.
Thank you, Andrew. On the other side of the aisle, Republicans are also picking their candidates for the South Carolina District 1 race. They are choosing between State Representative Mark Smith and Charleston Councilwoman Jenny Honeycutt. We spoke to both candidates earlier about their priorities if they ultimately win and represent District 1 in the U.S. House of Representatives.
I really feel strongly that the inflation is being created by the out-of-control spending, and Congress has got to get that under control. And so I have a message. We're going to go up there. We're going to push for a balanced budget amendment. But in the meantime, we are going to tackle this spending in the entire budget.
People have really appreciated my strong conservative voting record of delivering results, not platitudes and promises on the campaign trail, keeping citizens safe, making sure we're energy independent along with that America First agenda, and just continuing to lower taxes.
The Republican race for Attorney General has turned into a war of words at times between the two remaining candidates, both touting their own resumes as reasons they should get your vote. David Stumbo has been the solicitor for the 8th District since 2012, and he once worked for the South Carolina Attorney General's office in the early 2000s. Stephen Goldfinch is a lawyer elected to the South Carolina House in 2013 and the Senate in 2016. While Stumbo says his law and order skills over the years make him the right choice, Goldfinch says his wide range of experience in law and time in the state legislature make him the best choice.
I'm the prosecutor in the race. It's a prosecutor versus a politician, and you need a prosecutor to be your AG, not a politician who's spent a career in the Senate. You need somebody who's spent their career in the courtroom fighting crime and working with law enforcement. And so that's what sets me apart in this race.
I've done everything that the AG does. That's what distinguishes me from the other candidate. I've been a prosecutor. I've been a military prosecutor. I was a judge advocate general. I did a lot of high-profile prosecutions for national security and national security law for the Army and for the DOD. But I've also, in my private law practice, I fought the federal government. That's what I do for a living now. I do what's called administrative and regulatory law. So I fight the government.
And that winner will face off with the Democrat Richard Rizek in November. For more information on today's election, including congressional races that will impact the Lowcountry, head to WSAV.com/electionHQ.